Old woman who doesn't even do household chores, get out.
The words that shouldn't have been said were carelessly uttered by my eldest son and his wife. They will surely regret this. Well, I'm moving out then. The next day, I received a call from my daughter-in-law, which of course I ignored. It's too late now. My name is Emily. I lost my husband when I was 40, and I started working as a medical office worker at a clinic. No mistakes are allowed working as a clerk at an office in a medical institution. Working in the medical field means taking on heavy responsibility of protecting patients' lives. This is true for nurses and pharmacists, as well as medical office workers. Also, I was desperate to raise my son, Henry. Fortunately, my son graduated high school, got a job at a large company, and met the love of his life at work. I was excited to meet her because my son said, "She's extraordinarily cute." But she wasn't what I imagined. She may have good looks, but she's flashy with blonde hair and has a bad look. Her name is Grace. She's 25 years old. She cusses out my son very often, and she always has an attitude. She bragged about being a former gang member and blabbered on about her juvenile days. Looking at her casually talking about unbelievable things like throwing 5 hooligans into the river, I told my son that I was against their marriage. However, my son was totally smitten and insisted, "If I can't marry her, I'll never get married." My son and his wife, Grace, got married without throwing a wedding, only registering their marriage and started living together. In retrospect, this marriage might have been the beginning of our tragedy. After getting married, my son quit his job and said he was going to open a shop. The news was so unexpected that I was surprised and went to my son's house because it wasn't something to talk about over the phone. "What do you mean, open a shop?"
"I'm just fed up with the rigid hierarchical relationships in the corporate structure."
"Did something unpleasant happen?"
"I had a bit of a quarrel with a female employee."
"You weren't fired for sexual harassment, were you?"
"Do I look like Harvey Weinstein?"
"No." Making jokes while having an important conversation is one of my son's bad habits. Even at 35, he doesn't know when to stop joking around. "What kind of shop do you plan to open?"
"A cafe that serves delicious coffee." "There was a song like that in the past, or was it about tea?"
"Do you have savings? You'll need about $100,000 to open a shop, right?"
$100,000?
Looking at my son's shocked face, I became anxious. Opening a shop without a plan would fail immediately. Does my son understand how difficult it is to run a restaurant? Why don't you try working in a cafe before having your own shop?
"Grace is looking forward to opening a shop."
"How about becoming a hired manager?"
"A hired manager doesn't have much freedom, right? Of course, I'm going to be the owner and master. With my innovative ideas and rare intellect, running a cafe is a piece of cake. They called me Einstein back in high school, you know."
"Your classmates were full of liars."
"Now I look like Lindsay Lohan to you."
"I didn't say that." Just like this, we can't even go on with our conversation. "Do you have any savings?"
"I don't, so I will probably go into debt first."
He's not even crossing a dangerous bridge, but just holding on to burning ropes at this point. "What's the theme for your store?"
"What do you mean?"
He hasn't thought of anything. I became more worried. "Who's your target? What kind of customers do you want to attract?"
"Well, I'd prefer young and cute female customers."
"We're having a serious conversation here."
"I could post, 'Only beautiful women allowed,' outside the shop.
I listened, suppressing my anger. Do you have a unique selling point? Something that no other shop has?
Of course I do. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call this my trump card.
Can you tell me what it is?
Grace will be the waitress. Once that happens, I'm sure we'll have a long line of male customers. If I had to choose a cafe, I'd choose one with a cute waitress, especially since cafes are usually visible from the outside. If they see Grace's lovely figure, we're sure to attract a crowd.
This is hopeless. I can't take him seriously. As I was about to leave, my son held me back.
So there's something I want to discuss.
What is it?
I want us to live together.
Live together? With his wife under the same roof?
Since Grace will be helping with the shop, I want you to take care of the house chores. Cooking, cleaning, laundry. There's a lot, right?
Let Grace do that. I'm a full-time employee. I work full-time.
Even at your age?
The director said that if I wanted, I could work until I'm around 65. Being at the same workplace for a long time builds trust. You should have kept your job instead of losing your temper. My son was silent for a few seconds, then replied with a troubled expression.
I just made a small mistake, but my stupid boss started yelling.
You made a mistake at work.
Not at work, but I asked a slightly plump female employee from another department if she was pregnant. And she glared at me. Turned out she wasn't.
You're kidding.
If you ask a woman who's not pregnant how many weeks she's been pregnant, it's like telling her she's fat.
You idiot! It's not something to laugh about.
More than her, the boss was angry, criticized me as if I was not a human being. So I retaliated, told him I'd quit.
What does he think a job is to quit so easily? So why jump to opening a cafe without looking for another job?
Writing another resume is a hassle.
If you're going to open a shop, you're going to have to write documents that are more tedious than a resume. Then my son waved his index finger from side to side, saying,
No, no, no.
With a condescending attitude. I resisted the urge to slap him in the face.
Writing a resume for a job you don't like and writing documents to realize your dream is completely different.
You're kidding me.
I am being for real.
There's no point in getting heated with someone who's not even serious about their own store. If having your own store is your dream, then I won't hold you back. But I'm not doing any of your house chores.
Come on, I need your help.
You can take care of household chores, even while running a store, can't you?
Actually, I made a promise with Grace. Convincing Grace was tough. She didn't easily say yes. I told her that I'm happy just living with her, and I don't need anything else. Even said she doesn't have to do any household chores.
I was speechless at his audacity, but I couldn't let it slide. So why should I be the one to do the household chores?
Actually, it's not just household chores. I'd like you to help with preparing the shop too. It's not as much as running a pub, but the prep work seems hard, doesn't it?
If you're including me as a staff member, then I'll have a say in things.
I'd rather you not, though.
I think I need to crush my son's naivete before we open the shop, otherwise it will be a disaster. With that in mind, I asked a basic question. Do you have the stamina to keep running the shop?
I'm confident in my stamina, sorry to say. I do stretch out and lift weights every day without fail.
I'm not talking about your physical stamina.
I'm talking about the financial foundation to pay employee salaries and maintain our livelihood, even if we don't have any customers and run at a loss. I don't have any confidence in those aspects, to be honest.
Seeing my son say that with a smile, all I could do was sigh.
Sighing lets happiness escape.
You're the one making me sigh.
Me? Why?
Oh, shut up. I came in, obviously upset, but there are still a lot of things that need to be discussed. I rambled on quickly. If we're also serving light meals besides coffee, we need more ingredients, and we need equipment, suppliers, interior, signage, and whether to hire staff. The menu can't just be a poorly handwritten one. The location of the shop is even more important. Did you check whether there are any similar coffee shops nearby? If you're going to open a shop, you need to use things like social media and flyers, devise a PR strategy, and show a meticulous plan. Otherwise, nobody will lend you the startup capital. As I was talking, Grace, who had been silent all this time, interjected.
Hey, why do you get to decide?
For a moment, I didn't know who she was talking to. Did she mean me?
Henry's the one opening the shop, right?
Running a restaurant is tough.
Shut up, old hag.
I couldn't believe my ears. But my son stepped in with a forced smile.
Easy now. Don't get pressed, Mama. Let's continue this conversation tomorrow.
I thought I heard old hag, but I must have misheard. Maybe my hearing is getting worse? I have a medical office job with a monthly income of $2,700, and I get bonuses. I have saved up a lot of money over the years by not splurging. I wouldn't mind supporting my son a little. I want to support him if he's serious about working hard. Indeed, having your own shop is a dream, and it must be rewarding. I started living with my eldest son and his wife on the condition that I would be involved in the shop's management. I didn't live for 60 years for nothing. I leveraged my connections to get a referral to a trustworthy tax accountant, and I persuaded my complaining son and his complaining wife to take the accountant's advice. Thanks to that, we were able to borrow $60,000 for startup capital. We managed to start the shop, but our cafe isn't always packed with customers every day. One night, Grace came out of the bathroom, walked all the way to the kitchen in just a bath towel, and opened the refrigerator. I was stunned and couldn't say anything, but I couldn't stay silent. Grace! If you were living alone with my son, I'd understand. But since I'm also living here, that attire is not acceptable.
It's because you're here that I'm wrapped in a towel. If you weren't here, I'd be stark naked.
There is a phrase, left with one's mouth hanging open, and I was literally frozen with my mouth agape.
Can you stop nitpicking?
Calm down, I told myself. One morning, my daughter-in-law came to the kitchen yawning in her pajamas and began to eat the breakfast I had prepared without saying a word. The cafe opens at 7 a.m. for breakfast, but it was already 8:30. Grace, you don't seem to be at the cafe lately.
Henry said I don't need to go. Some ugly customer tried to exchange numbers with me all of a sudden. I got pissed and refused. He started saying, "What's with that attitude? I'm the customer here." So I told him, "You're 1 million years and 3 days too early to flirt with me with that face."
I gave my smug daughter-in-law a stern look. Our customers are gods. The cafe can't run without customers. We don't need customers like that. I splashed water in his face and told him never to come back.
You're lying. Before I could open my mouth, my daughter-in-law cut me off.
If it were the old me, I wouldn't have hesitated to pour hot coffee over his head. He should be thankful it was only water.
This can't go unspoken. I'm her mother-in-law. Grace, you need to find a job, even part-time, and help with the household expenses.
Is that an order?
She glared at me with terrifying eyes. Does she think she can intimidate me? I mustn't back down. Grace, if you don't want to work, at least do the housework.
Shut up, old woman. Nothing pisses me off more than being ordered around.
Who do you think you're talking to?
You. Who the hell do you think I am? I refuse to be lectured by some old woman like you.
My fear and anger crossed, and I was trembling.
Huh? You're not thinking of slapping me, are you? If you do, I'll punch you in the face.
This is it. I have to tell my son about this. When the cafe closed, I told my son. There's something important I need to talk about. If it's a lecture, I don't want to hear it. I told my son in detail about my daughter-in-law's unbelievable, abusive language. But my son said something unbelievable. You nagged Grace again, didn't you? What do you mean, nagged? I'll tell you something since you don't seem to realize it. You're always negative. Negative? Ignoring his wife's rampage, my son had the audacity to tell me off. When you keep correcting others, they will distance themselves from you, even if you are right. I'm the one in the wrong? Even if you think this person is saying something strange, affirm them first. If a person is affirmed from 1 to 10, they'll feel like listening to what that person has to say. That's how you connect with others, Mom. My son is completely on his wife's side. If I'm lectured by you, my life is over. With that, I left the cafe. The number of customers we have has dropped significantly. A rumor probably spread about my daughter-in-law who abused our customer. I asked my son, who was idly standing at the corner, Henry, do you check the passbook? I don't check it that much. You should occasionally update the passbook and keep track of the balance. We're still fine, right? It seems he doesn't know that I've been contributing a small amount every month, because he doesn't often look at his passbook. I don't particularly want gratitude or thanks, but he's just never aware of his financial status. This is not good. You can't get by with rough estimates and expectations. Life always finds a way. There's no way it will. Absolutely no way. Why the immediate denial? Let's talk about something fun. It's said that good fortune comes to those who laugh often. Look, I'm an optimist. I can't bear it. And let it all out. What you have isn't optimism, but mere optimistic sight. Optimism is thinking positively even when faced with adversities, viewing even the negatives in a positive light. It's a capability to turn tragedies into great outcomes by burning a fighting spirit. You can't be an optimist without these. Optimistic sight and optimism are totally different. Despite my earnest words, my son began slapping on the counter. Tap out, like when a high kick put someone down? You mount on top of them and throw punches at their face?
Enough. This is about your store.
Shut up. I'm seriously worried here. If you can only spew depressing things, then get lost.
I couldn't believe my ears. I can't stand to watch my son change. Poisoned by that woman. I hate to say it, but...
Then don't say it.
Grace doesn't help me with the shop, doesn't do housework, and verbally abuses me. Is this okay? When I talk to her about it, it causes tension. So you, as her husband, have to say something.
Oh, Grace?
What? As I turned around in surprise, my son burst out laughing.
Got you. You really fell for it.
Is this how he ridicules his parents? I've made up my mind. I won't interfere with his shop anymore, and I won't do any housework. Even if the room is messy and I want to clean up, but I resist and do nothing. In the morning, my daughter-in-law in her pajamas asks me when she sees nothing on the table. Huh, what about breakfast? Why don't you make it? I have to go to work, so see you. Wait. I ignored her and left the house. I finished dinner at a family restaurant near the clinic and got home around 9 o'clock at night. My furious daughter-in-law confronted me. What time do you think it is now? You didn't make dinner. Are you trying to starve me to death? If you're hungry, you should make dinner yourself. You're not a child. Are you picking a fight with me? As I ignore her and head to my room, she grabs my arm. Wait. If you resort to violence, I'll call the police immediately. Perhaps intimidated by my resolute attitude, she lets go of my hand. By the way, you haven't done the cleaning or the laundry. That's why, Grace, you should do it. If you don't do the housework, there's no point in you being here. Are you serious?
I think I'm a considerable help. What about you? You don't do housework. Don't help with the shop. Just complain to others. What good are you doing?
Badmouth me any more than that, and I'll hit you. Getting injured would hinder my own work. I took refuge in my room. I could hear yelling from the bedroom. Even though I know it's not right, I ended up listening. Because you spoil her. That old woman gets out of line. Every time she sees someone, she starts complaining. Do something. If you can't say anything to your parents, I'll leave.
Stop. That would be a problem. If you leave, I'll lose my reason to live.
If you really think that, then do something.
I got it. I'll do something. So don't say scary things like leaving.
It's pitiful. Did I raise him wrong? I guess I inadvertently spoiled him because we were a single-parent household. I wanted to cry. My son said he had something important to discuss, so I went to the shop after it closed. His wife Grace was there too, looking at me with a somewhat mocking expression. What's the important matter? Do you plan to not do chores anymore at all? I've been telling you that you should do your own housework. Shut up. I told you not to order me around. If you're not going to do housework, then get out. Laughing, my daughter-in-law spat out these harsh words and gestured to my son. When he hesitated, she whispered something in a low voice, but I could hear her. If you don't say that, we're getting a divorce.
The woman who doesn't do any housework should get out.
The woman who doesn't do any housework should get out? My son and his wife had said the lines that should never be spoken. They would surely regret making me genuinely angry. Just to confirm, Henry, are you really okay with me leaving? Get out. Get out. Just get out already. Then I'll move out immediately. Just one thing. What more could you possibly want? Henry, I'm cutting ties with you as your parent. From now on, we're strangers, so it's useless to rely on me. That's what I was about to tell you, idiot. You just keep quiet. I'm talking to my son. When I shouted, my daughter-in-law grabbed my arm. My son hurriedly stepped in between us.
Hey, let's stop the violence. Let go of her. Break, foul. 1, 2, 3.
Shut up. We're not wrestling. This is a street fight. There are no rules here.
Did you forget that I warned you? I'd call the police immediately if you throw your hands on me.
My daughter-in-law withdrew her hands but glared at me. I moved out immediately. There was a good apartment near the clinic, so it would be easier to commute from now on, and I wouldn't have to see that woman's face. The next day, I got a call from my daughter-in-law, but of course, I ignored it. Despite the persistent calls, I never answered. I used to transfer $3,000 to my son's account every month, but of course, I haven't since I moved. I can't imagine their business will thrive with such careless management, and now they've lost my support, so their savings will eventually run out. Without the burden of unreasonable support, I'm living a relaxed and peaceful life. A year has passed since then. I got another call from my daughter-in-law, so I answered. Hello? Is this Mom? I'm glad finally you answered. She called me Mom in a subdued voice, but I'm not naive enough to be fooled by such a thing. It's been a while.
What is it?
The shop is in serious trouble. It might close down.
Close down? Did a meteorite strike it down or something? There was a few seconds of silence, but my daughter-in-law continued to speak in a timid voice.
Please help us. We have no customers, and if the shop does close, we won't be able to repay our debts. Actually, some intimidating big guys have been threatening us. They're offering me a job at a place that works late at night. Please help us, Mom.
I don't have a daughter.
I apologize for everything that happened. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
But I replied coldly, I won't forgive you.
What should I do for you to forgive me?
I'll never forgive you. You've done far too much. It's too late.
You're not nice, Mom. You were giving us a huge amount of money. $3,000 every month to help us. Why didn't you tell us about such an important thing?
Grace, you might convince foolish men by pleading in such a sweet voice like that, but I'm not that easy. I'm busy, so I'm ending this call.
Wait, please.
Goodbye. Even after hanging up the phone, they called several times, but of course I ignored them. Realizing after you've tasted hell, it's too late. 3 days later, when I was about to go home after finishing work, my son and his ex-wife were in the clinic's parking lot. The couple knelt down in apology, but I just walked past.
Wait, please, Mom. We really need your help. You're the only one we can rely on.
Like I said, I have no daughter, no son. Mom, families help each other in times of trouble, don't they? Who are you saying that to?
We've reflected on our actions. Please forgive us.
I brushed off his ex-wife, who was deeply bowing her head with harsh words. Even a monkey can reflect on their actions.
A monkey?
Wait, Grace.
Are you calling us monkeys?
We agreed we wouldn't get angry no matter what was said.
They argued among themselves, but I turned my back and walked away. I could hear Emily shouting and my sons crying from behind.
It's all your damn fault!
When I looked back, Emily was attacking my son, but it was none of my business. Later, I heard through the grapevine that their shop had gone bankrupt. His wife left a divorce paper and ran away, and my son fled in the night. It hurts to see such a tragic end. There are many people in the world who try their hardest but still can't make it. I want to support and help such people unconditionally, but I have no intention of helping someone who not only doesn't try, but also makes a fool of others. Now I can focus on my work. Being a medical clerk is rewarding. No one comes to the hospital because they want to. I want to treat patients with cheerfulness and kindness, to give them hope and energy, even if it's just a little.
Help me, sis. My niece, Jenny, was about to burst into tears as she handed me something. It was just a picture of my brother, her father, with his colleagues at a bar. What's wrong, Jenny? Why the sudden distress? What are you two doing over there? As I was about to ask, my stern-faced sister-in-law interrupted us. I've been looking for you, Jenny. Come with me, she said, swiftly whisking Jenny away. Left alone, I casually flipped over the picture. To my surprise, on the back was a message from my brother. If anything happens to me, please protect my daughter. My name is Alice. I'm a 32-year-old working in the office of the construction company my family runs. My brother, 10 years my senior, was always hardworking and bore the weight of expectations as the heir to our family business. Everyone, including me, assumed he would take over the company. However, since he finished high school, disagreements with our father over management policies began to increase. My brother, it seemed, wasn't really interested in taking over the company, often saying, "I love being a carpenter, but that doesn't mean I want to inherit the business." I remember him repeating this like a mantra. Then he announced, "I've met someone I want to marry," and introduced us to a woman. Her name was Maggie. She had an outgoing personality and quickly bonded with our family, but she never lived with us. "I'm going to get married and leave this house." "Wait, aren't you going to take over the business, bro? You know I don't get along with Dad, right? I don't want to cause you any trouble." With those words, he gently stroked my head. True to his word, he married a few days later and left the house. Nevertheless, he always kept in touch with me and we chatted about trivial things. Maggie's dinner was delicious today. She's a dietitian, so she always prepares meals considering my high blood pressure. Yeah, I've heard that story 1,000,000 times. You never get tired of bragging, do you? As long as my brother was happy, that was all that mattered to me. Then, a few years after his marriage, Jenny was born. From then on, we started seeing my brother and his wife occasionally. They seemed blissfully happy, and Jenny was growing up healthily, loved by both parents. Around the time Jenny turned 10, there were talks within the family of mending ties with my brother. We all hoped to recreate the times when the family used to laugh together. However, that wish was not to be fulfilled. One day while I was at work, I received a rare call from my sister-in-law. While it wasn't unusual to get calls from my brother, it was strange to hear from her. Worried, I immediately picked up the phone. "Hello, sister-in-law?" "Oh, Alice." "What's up? It's rare to get a call from you." "Calm down and listen. Your brother, Jake, he fell from scaffolding at work and was taken to the hospital. He slipped because of the rain." The news was so sudden. I felt as if time had stopped. My mind went blank. Immediately, I called my parents, who were also at work, and we hurried to the hospital in the pouring rain. When we were led into the hospital room, we saw my brother, his skin pale. From the moment I saw him, the reality of the phone call hit me, and I collapsed onto the floor. "Bro?" The voice I managed to squeak out was so feeble that I startled myself, and a wave of sorrow washed over me. At the bedside, my brother's wife was bawling unabashedly like the heroine of a tragic tale. Her wailing was so intense that it made me hold back my tears and just stare at her, but I felt a strange unease about her behavior. Then Jenny, standing next to her, was looking down, her face pale, not shedding a tear but trembling as if she were terrified of something. "Jenny, are you okay?" It seemed like the shock of her father's death had made her unable to respond to my question. After the wake for my brother at our home, as the relatives were lost in their grief, I found myself quietly shedding tears in a deserted corner of the porch. The photo in the memorial portrait seemed to be a recent one. My brother looked a little worn out, but his expression was peaceful. I wonder if my brother lived a happy life. As I thought about this, an image of Jenny came to my mind. The last time we talked, my brother, who loved his daughter dearly, happily told me about how often he took her to amusement parks and zoos. Jenny must be struggling after losing her father. Thinking about my niece's feelings, I felt tears well up again, but then I heard a familiar voice calling out to me. "Sis." It was Jenny, her eyes brimming with tears. "Jenny, what's wrong?" I wiped my tears and asked her, trying to keep my composure. "Sis, help me. I think I might be next." "Eh?" As I was about to ask her to repeat what she had said, she handed me something while biting her lip. "Dad said if anything happens, I want you to give this to Alice." My brother said that? It was a brown envelope. It seemed a little worn, probably because she had been holding on to it for a while. "It's actually—" Just then I heard a cold voice behind me saying, "What are you doing?" I was startled and turned around to see my brother's wife, Maggie, with a stern look on her face. "I've been looking for you." "Mama." Maggie grabbed Jenny's arm and, before I could stop her, quickly whisked her away. Maggie had always been very friendly and kind, but she was behaving very differently now. It's natural given her husband just passed away, but Jenny's behavior was also a bit strange. Left behind, when I looked at what was inside the envelope, it was an ordinary photograph. It looked like it could have been taken at a social gathering. In it, my brother was smiling alongside several of his work colleagues. I decided to flip the photo over. On the back it read, "If anything happens to me, I want you to protect my daughter," in my brother's slightly angular handwriting. I was taken aback, speechless, and just staring in surprise. I think Jenny was asking for help. This photo might be related. I decided to call a friend who was a police officer and arranged to meet him the next day. Normally, the funeral would have been conducted the day after the wake, but the crematorium was not available due to a certain day of the week, so we had a day off. This extra day allowed me to uncover the truth behind my brother's death. The next morning, when I arrived at our meeting place, he was already there waiting for me. "Sorry for calling you out of the blue." "Hey, don't worry about it. I was off duty. So what's up?" "Well, it's just that—" I began to tell my friend the sequence of events, and he listened seriously. From a cop's perspective, we can't act on this with just the evidence we have." "I see. I'm sorry I can't be of more help, but remember, I'm always here to lend an ear if you need it." "Yeah, thanks. Just talking about it helps me sort things out." Even after parting ways with my friend, I was still pondering over the photo that Jenny had handed me. No matter how many times I looked at it, The meaning of this photo and my brother's message remained a mystery. What else can I do to find a clue I don't understand from this message alone? I might learn something if I ask Jenny directly, but I feel like my sister-in-law might interfere again. Just then, an idea popped into my head. Maybe I can find something if I look at my brother's belongings. Unable to stay still, I quickly went to my sister-in-law's house. I'm sorry for bothering you when you're busy. I'm just worried about you and Jenny. Thank you for coming all the way. Jenny is in her room, but let's leave her be for now. She's feeling down since her father passed away. As she said that, she invited me into the living room. She was always tidy and the house was always well kept, but today it felt rather bleak. Oh, there's nothing of my brother's here, and the family photo that was here the last time I visited. There was nothing to suggest that my brother had been here. Desperate to find anything left behind by my brother, I scanned the room. Maggie brought me some tea and homemade pickles. What caught my eye was a light purple bracelet like a rosary on Maggie's wrist. It didn't seem to match her or my brother's taste, and I felt a sense of discomfort as I thanked her for the tea and tasted the pickles. Wow, it's so salty. These pickles are really salty, aren't they? I quickly gulped down my tea to wash down the extreme saltiness of the pickles, but Maggie just tilted her head, saying, "Really? I don't think so." Maggie, a dietitian, made delicious meals that my brother looked forward to so much that he would rush home from work. It was clearly strange for something she made. Could it be that she was feeding my hypertensive brother this salty food? Since I arrived at Maggie's house, I've been feeling an indescribable discomfort. I began to worry about Jenny. I'd like to talk to Jenny. She's in her room, right? Just as I stood up and was about to head towards Jenny's room. "No, I won't let you see her." "What? Why?" "I'm sorry, but you should leave. I'm busy preparing for the funeral." Maggie grabbed my wrist, pushed me out into the hallway, and threw me out of the house. Despite visiting the house, I was unable to find any clues. As I looked up at the sky, wondering what to do, Jenny poked her head out of a second-floor window. She put her index finger to her lips in a quiet gesture and threw something at me. It was a small key, wrapped in a cute memo paper. "The key to the shed. Hide it under the potted plant after you use it," the note read. When I silently showed a thumbs up to Jenny, she silently nodded and gently closed the window. I went to the backyard to avoid my sister-in-law and used the key I received to open the shed. Inside, it was packed with my brother's belongings. Among them, I found a diary. Jake was a diligent person and had been recording his daily events in a diary since he lived at home. There was something unbelievable written in there. The seasoning of the food had become heavy, and even when he pointed it out, she said, "Leave it to me, I'm a dietitian." And he couldn't get her to take it seriously. His health had been declining recently. Furthermore, the reason why Jake left that photo was also recorded. I'll never forgive this. The next day, many people, including relatives and Jake's colleagues, gathered at the funeral. When Maggie took the microphone to give the bereavement address, I stood up and stopped her. "I have something I want you all to hear." "Oh, Alice? What's wrong?" Ignoring Maggie, who was surprised by my sudden action, I stepped out in front of the family. Jake's death wasn't an accident. The hall was in an uproar at my words, and Maggie had a very stern look on her face. "What are you talking about? My husband slipped off the scaffold at work and fell." I showed everyone Jake's diary. "Everything is written here. My sister-in-law, who is usually good at cooking, started making heavily seasoned dishes, and Jake's health started to deteriorate. It's strange, isn't it, Maggie, to not only serve salty pickles and soup to Jake, who has high blood pressure, every day, but also to insist that he eat everything without leaving any?" I don't know anything about that. I was careful with his meals every day. Ignoring Maggie, who seemed to be playing innocent, I pulled out another piece of evidence. This is a photo that Jake left for me. At first, I didn't know what it meant, but when I visited your house yesterday, I understood. The person in this photo is wearing a bracelet that matches the light purple bead bracelet you are wearing. As I pointed to a certain person, everyone's gaze was instantly drawn there. Mr. Johnson, you and Maggie were having an affair, weren't you? Even though you were a colleague whom Jake trusted the most, why did you do such a thing? As the hall began to stir, Maggie glared at me with a stern expression, and the man looked pale and nervous. Mr. Johnson was a familiar face to me as well. He had been a good friend of Jake's since Jake graduated from high school and started working, and he had visited our house many times. His wrist, wiping the sweat from his forehead, revealed the same bracelet as Maggie's. I'm sure Jake was struggling a lot, knowing that the colleague he trusted was his wife's affair partner, and that he might even be targeted for his life. That's why he couldn't tell me directly, and leaving this photo was all he could do. As I spoke to Mr. Johnson, choking back tears, he broke down crying and held his head. What? A diary and a bracelet can't be evidence of an affair or killing my husband. Maggie started to get defensive. But I was prepared for that, so I continued with the diary. There's more evidence. Jake checked your phone, Maggie, and saw your emails with him. It seems it was written, "Jake is in the way for us to be together. Let's get rid of him somehow." That's a lie. Is it a lie? We can easily find out by investigating, right? At first, it seems you thought of taking advantage of my brother's high blood pressure to kill him through his meals, but that would take too long. So, driven by your desire to get married as soon as possible, you approached Mr. Johnson to eliminate my brother in a workplace accident, didn't you? You planned to push him from a high place on a rainy day, and if anyone asked, you'd just say he slipped. I never said that. He's the one who suggested it. Maggie began to point at Mr. Johnson, trying to shift the blame onto him. The man shook his head frantically, denying it. Mr. Johnson, it was raining on the day my brother died, wasn't it? Mr. Johnson gave a small nod. Normally, work would be stopped on a rainy day, so why wasn't it? It was just a drizzle and we had a deadline, so he suggested we should continue with the work, so I thought it was an opportunity. My brother thought of you as his best friend and trusted you until the end, you know? The moment someone gulped, he bowed deeply towards Jenny, Jake's only daughter. I was led astray by her and I did something terrible. I'm truly sorry. As Mr. Johnson continued to apologize while crying, Jenny looked at him with sad eyes. Maggie was still shouting, I don't know anything about it. I'm not guilty. Even at this point, you'll submit the incriminating emails to the police, right? When Mr. Johnson offered his phone, it seemed she finally gave up. Then, a police officer friend who had come to my brother's funeral arrested the two of them and took them away. It was a relief to see them finally apprehended. After that, Maggie and Mr. Johnson received long prison sentences. Thanks to the lawyer I hired, Jenny was able to receive $100,000 from a system called Victims' Compensation Program, which is designed to help the bereaved families of victims recover a peaceful life as soon as possible. Jenny was in shock from the incident and lost her spirits for a while, but I adopted her as my child and she has started to show more smiles. I decided to pour a lot of love into this child, in place of my brother.
My name is Kathy. Ever since I was little, I loved my dad dearly. He was the kind of man who always put his family first and himself last. He ensured my brother and I never lacked anything, and he took care of my stay-at-home mom too. He would hand over his entire paycheck to her, never complaining, even when he didn't have a dime to his name. Thanks to my dad, my brother and I lived fulfilling lives. I thought our family of four would continue to live this way forever. I thought so. But life can be so cruel. Suddenly, I lost my dad, the man I loved so much. It was just when I was in my senior year of high school and my brother was in 8th grade. That day, like any other, Dad left for work as usual, but then he suddenly collapsed at his workplace and was rushed to the hospital. By the time my brother and I got to the hospital, Dad was already gone. Mom arrived an hour later. My brother and I were sobbing uncontrollably, but Mom, she was strangely calm. She was shocked by the sudden death of Dad, sure, but she shed no tears. Mom, what are we going to do now? Dad's gone, I asked her. Mom was a stay-at-home wife, which meant she had no income. That means no income. Without Dad, how could our family survive? But Mom didn't answer my question. Mom, are you listening? Dad's dead. Then Mom let out a big sigh and bluntly said, "What's done is done. Can you stop crying so loud? It's giving me a headache." Wait, what? What did she say? What's done is done? About Dad's death? Sure, no one could have predicted or prevented such a thing, but to talk about Dad, who supported us all these years, like that, is just too cruel. For the first time, I felt a surge of disgust towards my mom. I had always felt that Mom was spoiled and overly reliant on Dad, but to maintain her indifference even in such a situation, Mom laughed scornfully at my glaring face. What are you glaring at? It's not like it's my fault he's dead. And so, our nightmare began. Because as soon as Dad's funeral was over, Mom started bringing strange men into our home. We were living in a rented condominium, and the room that Dad used to use was taken over by one of these men. Our everyday life took a dramatic turn. Mom and her lover treated my brother and me like nuisances. They would raise their voices at us if anything didn't go their way. Mom just watched with a smirk without scolding the man. The hellish situation went on for months, and my brother and I were at our breaking point. Mom had always managed all of Dad's salary, saving a portion of it in her own bank account while cutting down Dad's allowance. It seemed she was using that money to have fun with her lover. We couldn't take this life anymore. I had to change our situation for my brother's sake. With this in mind, I decided to look for a part-time job. I was ready to give up on college, planning to work immediately after high school. As I was contemplating all this, a man claiming to be a lawyer showed up one day. "This was commissioned by your father before his passing." He then pulled out Dad's will. Dad left a will? Mom appeared taken aback by the lawyer's sudden visit, unaware of the truth he was about to unveil. The lawyer clarified the situation to us. "Your father had realized that something was wrong with his health early on, but he believed that if I don't work, we'll be in a bind. So, I want to leave something behind for a rainy day." As the lawyer unsealed our father's will, he explained it in layman terms. "Your father intended to divide his 20 million fortune by giving 10 million to Mom and 5 million each to you kids." Mom, upon hearing this, eagerly addressed the lawyer. "So when do I get the money?" "As soon as all the official proceedings are complete. The funds should be transferred shortly." Without skipping a beat, Mom prepared a pen and signed the necessary documents. The talk was complex for us kids, but we decided to accept our father's legacy gratefully. A few days later, my brother and I made the decision to leave the house. I started to consider what would be essential for us living on our own and what the bare minimum actions would be. If we were leaving the house, we needed to find a new place to live. But would anyone be willing to rent a property to high school students? While pondering, I remembered that the parents of a middle school friend owned an apartment. The next day, I visited their house promptly, explained the situation, and asked, "So, since we have our father's legacy and I plan to start a part-time job, could you introduce us to a good apartment?" In response, my friend's parents proposed, "Since we can't legally lease to high school students, how about we rent you a room in our apartment? You just need to pay the monthly rent." Yes, I'd be grateful. Thank you so much. My friend's parents were worried until the end, but when they perceived my strong determination, they finally encouraged me, saying, "You can count on us anytime you need help." That night, I brought up the matter to Mom. "Mom, Sam and I are planning to leave the house soon." What are you planning to do?" "We're going to live together, just the two of us." I supposed our affairs didn't matter to Mom in the least. Without even looking at me, Mom dismissed us nonchalantly. "Well, do as you please. I couldn't care less what happens to you two. It'll actually be better without you two around, so you won't get in the way of my time with him." At that moment, my barely lingering affection for Mom crumbled completely. "Okay, I understand. Thanks for everything, Mom." With a heavy dose of sarcasm towards Mom, I left the house I'd lived in for years. The start of living with my brother, this turned out to be way more challenging than I imagined. early morning paper routes, then school, and a part-time job at the supermarket after returning home. I didn't want to touch the money left by our father, so I tried to cover living expenses with my part-time wage as much as possible. At the supermarket, they gave me the box meal scheduled for disposal. That became our dinner. I knew my brother, being a middle schooler, would want some fun, so I gave him a modest monthly allowance. Here you go, Sam. This is your allowance for the month.
But you hardly spend anything on yourself.
Don't worry about me. Having fun is an essential experience too, you know? Despite his reservations, I insisted on giving my brother his allowance. I felt guilty about the financial constraints he had to endure because of me, so I wanted to do at least the bare minimum for him. Our life continued like that for a while, and before we knew it, it was fall. The buzz among my classmates was all about where they were going to college. To me, those conversations felt like such a luxury. I couldn't think of anything but where I would work after graduation and how I would help my brother get to college, because it was the only thing I could think of. One day, I happened to have the day off from my part-time job. My brother and I were enjoying a leisurely lunch at home when the apartment doorbell rang. Who could it be? When I opened the door, there was Mom. Mom? Don't you dare call me that. Now, where's your banking card? Banking card? Mom suddenly barged in, demanding the banking card, and I was totally lost. She ignored my confusion and shouted at me to hurry up and hand it over. Wait a minute. Why so sudden? Even though I tried to ask, she wouldn't listen. She even went so far as to march straight into the house, rummaging through the rooms.
Hey, Mom, stop it!
My brother tried to stop her, but she just pushed him aside with a curt "shut up." I rushed to my brother's side, pleading with Mom to stop. Eventually, she found the banking card in a drawer. After checking the untouched balance in the account, she smirked. Oh, there's quite a bit left. You're just like me, doing so well. How admirable. Disgusted, I glared at her, and that must have irked her because she shoved me next. What's with that look? Just do as I say, I'm your mother. She left with our banking cards. I felt so helpless and sank to the floor. Why? After all the hard work to get this far, why does she have to ruin everything again? The peaceful life with my brother that I had finally managed to grab. I worked so hard without even touching our father's inheritance, all for my brother's future. Sis, my brother comforted me as I cried. I felt pathetic for not being able to protect my only brother. Just then I remembered something. The one letter that the lawyer had given me when he visited a while back. He asked me to give this to you without letting Mom know. Open this only if you're in trouble, he said. The lawyer, seemingly aware of this situation with Mom, had discreetly handed me an envelope. Life with my brother had started right after, and in all the bustle, I completely forgot about it. I opened the letter from my deceased father and read its contents. It was an address. It was somewhere far away from where we lived, an area completely unknown to us. However, I figured there must be a reason my father left it. I decided to go to that place with my brother. We got on a plane, and then we took a taxi from the airport. What awaited us was a house with a grand gate, something you'd only see in movies or TV shows.
What is this gigantic house?
My brother seemed overwhelmed by the sheer size of the house. As we stood there, a burly man came out from the inside. Who might you be? We found a letter from our father. Your address was in it. As we explained the situation, the man began to speak to someone on the phone. After a brief moment, the man changed his demeanor and said, Please come in, inviting us into the mansion. In the great room to which we were guided, an elderly woman was sitting alone. Upon seeing us, she greeted us. Kathy and Sam, right? Nice to meet you. I'm your grandmother. Grandmother? We were shocked and we couldn't help but exclaim loudly. We had never heard any stories about our father's family, nor did we even know if we had a grandmother. Not just that, but who would have thought that our father's childhood home would be such an impressive estate? Since you've come, does that mean my son has passed away? Her son, that is, our father. I gave a small nod to our grandmother. Interrupting me, grandmother took out a large bag and handed it to me. This is something your father left with me. He said if they ever come to visit, give this to them. When I opened the bag, it was packed with countless bundles of bills, the likes of which I'd never seen before. Ignoring our surprise, grandmother began to explain. We had a falling out a long time ago, and for a while we didn't talk at all, but about a year and a half ago, he suddenly showed up and left this bag. According to her, our father's family, in other words, our grandmother, was part of a long-established gang. Our father had refused to take over the family business and had cut ties with his grandmother after a big fight. When we heard it was a gang, it all made sense. That grand entrance, of course. It was a surprise to learn that our father's family was involved in a gang, but this turn of events was just as astonishing. Perhaps our father knew about Mom's cheating habits. Even when it came to the inheritance, there's a limit to what we as minors could do. The allocation of the money was likely just for formality's sake. What our father really wanted to leave us was that letter with grandmother's address on it. Our father had been planning this in case anything happened to us. I was moved to tears by our father's kindness. I took the time to explain everything. How he had been treated poorly by Mom and her lover, how Mom had taken our father's inheritance. After hearing everything, grandmother told us, "You don't need to give up on life because of your mother. I'll get that money back for you. You two need to live your lives." With gratitude, we took the bag of money our father left us and returned to our apartment. With this money, I can let my brother go to college as much as he wants. In addition, our grandmother even promised to pay for my college tuition. Thanks to our father and grandmother, my once abandoned hope of attending college has been fulfilled. "Sis, I'm so happy for you." My younger brother giving me a warm smile. He too must have been holding up for a long time. "Sam, it's thanks to you sticking with me that we got through this. Thank you." As I thanked him, he shyly sniffled. A few days later, grandmother visited our apartment, returning the banking card Mom had taken from us. She had used one of her employees to locate Mom and get our card back. Indeed, quite the gangster. Thinking about it can be a little scary, but amusing at the same time. "I made that woman promise she won't bother you two ever again. You can live in peace now." "Thank you, grandmother. But how?" "That's not something children need to worry about. From now on, live your lives to the fullest." Before leaving, grandmother gave us those encouraging words. There's a postscript to this story. Mom's lover, actually, he was after Mom's money. When grandmother took back the bank card, he promptly dumped Mom. Having exhausted our father's inheritance, Mom is now desperately searching for a job. A woman who has been a housewife all her life from now on will undoubtedly be challenging. However, thanks to my grandmother, peace returned to our lives. I passed the entrance exams for my first choice university, and I'm still working part-time, trying to avoid using our father's money as much as possible. I later entered the workforce and my brother started college. Now that we've reached this point, we're safe. Childhood was long and tough, but there were kind adults watching over us. Father's lawyer, the couple who rented us the apartment, our gangster grandmother, and our beloved father. "Dad, we're off." Every morning, my brother and I pay respects to our father's portrait. We'll keep supporting each other. So please, watch over us from heaven, Dad. Somehow, it felt like Dad's portrait was smiling.
Zoe got into an accident. She needs rehab, so she'll be in the hospital for about a month. So I'm going to need $10,000 for her medical bills. Mom-in-law, that money is set aside for expenses. We can't just use it without planning. Do you have a problem with helping out? We're family, aren't we? Even if we're not related by blood, you should be willing to support us. Funny how the word family only comes up in times like this. Well, if Zoe is injured, maybe it can't be helped. Just when I was giving in to the idea, a game-changing phone call comes in. My name is Sophia, and my family runs a farm. My brother has taken over the family business, so I work at another company. Still, I help out during busy seasons by taking some time off work. My job allows for remote work, giving me flexibility. The company was supportive when I told them I'd occasionally need time to help my dad, which was very helpful. So I was making a decent income and had some financial leeway. I married Oliver when I was 25. He has a really kind personality, and I fell for him quickly. I thought his parents must be nice people too, but it turns out I was totally wrong. By the time Oliver and I met, his dad had already passed away, so he lived with just his mom and his sister Zoe, who seemed to rule over him. Both women visit quite frequently since we got married. I initially thought they were being considerate, but that wasn't the case. Sophia, what's for dinner tonight? I was thinking of making vegetable soup since we had meatloaf yesterday. That won't do. Oliver is still growing. He needs more meat. But he's already 35. We have to start thinking about his health. As we are talking, Zoe heads for the kitchen. Mom, look! Vegetable soup? Ew! It's all vegetables. And the seasoning is bland. This must be because Oliver married a farmer's daughter. Poor guy. Zoe opens the pot and starts tasting the soup. The seasoning is too bland. Let me add some salt. Then it will taste better. She proceeds to pour a ton of salt into the pot. I was so stunned, I couldn't move. Mom, you put in way too much salt. Now it's too spicy to eat. Oops, my bad. Guess we'll have to make it all over again. Oliver will be home soon, so we need to hurry. Well, you're home all day, so it shouldn't be a problem to remake it, right? You're free anyway, Sophia. True, let's head back home then. What's for dinner tonight? How about vegetable soup? That sounds fantastic. They leave the house, laughing. I stare at the oversalted soup, feeling heavy at the thought of starting all over. I use vegetables we grew ourselves, so it feels like a waste, like I've let my dad down. I also have a job. I'm not free. I manage my chores while squeezing them into my remote work schedule. They don't seem to get that. 30 minutes later, Oliver comes home from work. Dinner isn't ready. I apologize after welcoming him home. I'm sorry, Mom-in-law and Zoe came by earlier and dinner isn't ready yet. They came again, huh? It's okay, I think we still have some instant ramen. I'm really sorry, I'll boil some water for you. Oliver must have some idea what mother-in-law and Zoe are doing when they come to his house. But he doesn't seem to care at all. Probably can't stand up for himself. I get it. They're his family. But he should say something. That was my true feeling. I think Oliver is kind because he takes after his father, not his mother. That's my only issue. He helps around the house even though he's tired from work and we go out on his days off. I thought I should just endure it. Then something amazing happened. Our daughter Emma was born. It's hard, but with the help of my mom and others, Emma is growing well. But ever since Emma was born, his mom and sister Zoe visit more often. Hi, Emma. How are you? It's Grandma. I'm good. You're good at saying hello. Here's something for being so good. She hands Emma an expensive chocolate. I rush to stop her. Chocolate is too early for Emma, and please don't give her something so expensive. She can't eat it. What? You're going to reject a gift? How terrible. I won't bring anything again. It would be too late if something happened to Emma, so fine. Emma is unfortunate because she can't have chocolate due to her own mom. She's a kid. Let her have some fun. That's beside the point. What if Emma gets sick? Stop being so uptight. Let kids be kids. You're already confusing enough with your weird farming job. Sophia, Mom, Zoe, stop it. Not in front of Emma, please. Oliver finally speaks. Emma was anxiously watching us argue. I apologize, and she goes to another room. The situation has changed. It's not just about me enduring anymore. It could negatively affect Emma. I decide to avoid them as much as possible. I was managing somehow, but then disaster struck. Zoe had an accident and hurt her leg. According to his mom, it was a single vehicle accident. She needs rehab and will be in the hospital for a month. So I'll need $10,000 for the medical bills. She grabs the money we had saved from farm equipment. It's money we work hard to save for efficiency. That money is for the farm work, Mom. We can't afford to give it away. Farm work? More important than my daughter? We're family, aren't we? How can you say such a thing when Zoe is in trouble? I can't stand her invoking family only when it's convenient. Mom, what's going on? Emma comes over because of the raised voices. Oh, Emma, your mom is going to have Zoe, right, Sophia? Yes. Under the pressure, I nod. See you later, Emma. She leaves, satisfied. I sit down, defeated. Mom, are you okay? I'm okay, sweetie. Sorry for worrying you. I held Emma, looking anxious, and tried to soothe her. Spending this much money is hard, but it's for Zoe, so it's unavoidable. That's what I had to tell myself. But Mom-in-law's demands just kept escalating. Cook meals because caring for her is tough. Do the laundry. She was asking for everything. When I tried to decline because of work, she'd say, "You're at home anyway, so what's the problem?" I felt both physically and emotionally drained. Do you want me to help? I can visit the hospital if you tell me where it is.
No need. Zoe is my daughter. I can't impose on you.
She kept asking for favors and taking money, but helping her was somehow imposing? Since the day of the accident, I haven't even seen Zoe. What if I go see her? I can swing back after work.
You don't have to worry, Oliver. I'll take care of it.
That's how she'd shut it down. Eventually, Oliver stopped asking about Zoe too. Maybe Zoe needs her space. Mom's looking after her, so she's fine. If she needs something, she'll reach out. That's the conclusion I settled on. If Oliver's not saying anything, it's not my place to dig deeper. The unexpressed stress kept piling up. Then one day, Mother-in-law said she had something to do for Zoe and left alone. Usually either Oliver or I would go with her, but today she left alone. I was relieved and started cleaning the house. About an hour in, Oliver's phone rings. It's Mother-in-law shopping. He's in the garage, so I consider picking up. Emma approaches.
Hey, it's Grandma. Answer it quick.
After saying that, the call abruptly ended. Panic. Oliver tried to signal that he was away from his desk but overheard a shocking conversation. I quickly opened my mobile phone and started a voice recorder app. After finishing the recording, I grabbed Emma's hand and we rushed back to my parents' house. Thankfully, it was nearby. Dad and Mom were surprised by the sudden visit, but there was no time to explain. We immediately reported the incident to the police and returned home. When we got back, my mother-in-law was just returning from shopping. Sophia, what's going on? You seem frazzled. Where's Emma?
You really should calm down. Women who can't keep their cool aren't attractive.
My mother-in-law casually sipped her coffee. I said nothing, and I started playing the recorded audio.
Oh, it should be connecting, but I don't hear anything. Hello? Mom, you said we're out of toilet paper, right? Is this the kind we usually use?
Thank you. That's the one. I'm trying to call Oliver, but no one is answering.
Could Emma have accidentally pressed it?
She's quite the tomboy. That could be. Maybe Emma will turn out like Sophia.
I'd hate that. 2 doll farm girls? Should we trip one of them up a bit? Tell Sophia or Oliver to take her to the park and we can get her on the slide or the swing.
I can't help but laugh imagining Sophia's troubled face. The two hung up, laughing. Both my mother-in-law and Oliver were pale as ghosts. What is this? Is it Zoe was hospitalized? What did we just hear? This is a ghost. Yes, a ghost.
I'm worried about Zoe that I'm hearing things. You shouldn't be pushing me like this.
So you're planning to hurt Emma based on hallucinations? You're the one who should be in the hospital.
Oliver, say something.
Mom, where is Zoe? For the first time ever, Oliver looked dead serious. My mother-in-law stayed silent. If you won't speak, I'll have to search the house. And if I find Zoe... Please, Oliver, believe me, Zoe really is in the hospital. I just didn't want to bother you with the details. You know it's serious if you're lying, right? We've also alerted the police.
The police?
My mother-in-law shouted. Of course, I can't ignore the potential threat to my daughter. Home affairs are not the police's business, they said, but this is not a joke. Oliver seemed to have understood. So that's why you moved Emma. Thank you. Now we need to find Zoe.
Wait, Oliver. This recording is fake. Sophia is trying to trick us.
Enough of that. Sophia is clearly trying to protect our daughter. I trust Sophia. If you can tell me,
I will call every nearby hospital to see if Zoe is there. If not, I'm filing a missing person report.
That's it?
At that, my mother-in-law collapsed. It seemed the game was up. A few minutes later, Zoe arrived home. She was perfectly fine, with both feet intact.
It's annoying that he keeps interfering with every little detail. I was living a good life.
You've been lying about being in the hospital to live off that money, haven't you?
Yeah, so what? We're family. You can spare $10,000, can't you? You'd be happy if your family was doing well, right? Are you really that stingy?
From this moment on, we're not family, Mom. Zoe, please, cut ties with us. I can't take this anymore.
What are you saying, Oliver? I approve of your marriage to Sophia for your happiness. I never wanted you to be with someone like this. I thought you could do better, but still.
Don't say another bad word about Sophia and Emma. Just leave. I never want to see you again.
Exactly, Mom. Let's hear what Emma thinks too. She's her daughter, and her opinion matters, right? Fine. She's probably at Sophia's parents' house, right? I'll call her now, so listen up.
She starts dialing the home phone. She puts it on speaker so everyone can hear.
Hello?
Hi, Emma, it's Grandma. Can I talk to you for a second? Emma remains silent, but the mother-in-law continues.
You miss Grandma if I were gone, right? Your mom wants to cut me out. Say something, will you?
After a moment of silence, Emma speaks.
I don't like Grandma. Mom always looks sad because of you. Zoe talks bad about Mom, so I don't like her either.
Both the mother-in-law and Zoe are at a loss for words. Given that, please leave now. If you stay, I'll call the police again. The two of them leave the house, heads hung low. We immediately go to pick up Emma. I had been worried that maybe Emma didn't want to be separated from her grandmother. It's natural for a child to miss their grandparents. I thought we'd have to find another way. But Emma had been paying close attention to the actions of her grandmother and Zoe. And so, we decided to have nothing more to do with them. If they come close, we'll call the police immediately. We also plan to get back the money we gave Zoe for her medical expenses. I later heard that Zoe lost her job. She was constantly getting yelled at by her boss for her poor work attitude. It's easy to imagine from her daily behavior. They probably needed money because Zoe lost her income. Now, they're living off the mother-in-law's pension. But she's too old to work, and Zoe's attitude is so bad that she can't hold a job. I saw them stocking up on discounted potatoes at the supermarket the other day. They both looked a bit thinner and worn out, but it's their own fault. Both Dad and Mom were really worried after this incident. We hadn't consulted them much since getting married, not wanting to be a burden. Mom was planning to speak clearly when the mother-in-law called, but Emma beat her to it. She wanted to tell her grandmother directly, she said. Both Dad and Mom said they'll be there for us if anything happened, so we'll make sure to talk to them from now on. Emma, who we were most worried about, seemed surprisingly carefree. Maybe she was stressed by the mother-in-law and Zoe without us knowing. We've been busy with work and haven't gone out much lately, so we're planning a family trip to the amusement park during our next day off.
My sister-in-law suddenly installed 4 air conditioners in the house where I live with my mother. I thanked her, but I was curious where the money came from. I did it myself. Don't worry about it. I had a bad feeling about her response. Rushing to my room, I checked my bank book. I found it, feeling relieved for a moment. However, my name is Cindy Smith. I'm living with my 83-year-old mother, Mary. I used to work as a nurse until 2 years ago. But since retiring at 60, I've been devoted to caring for my mother, who has dementia. My father became disabled in a traffic accident when I was 30. Concerned about him, I returned home. Before I knew it, I missed the opportunity to marry as I was busy with work and caring for him, realizing that everyone around me was married. My older brother married early and had 3 children. My nieces and nephews would often come to play at our home and were very attached to me. I didn't feel lonely because I treated them like my own children. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why I remained single for life. My father passed away 7 years ago from pneumonia. Moreover, my brother died from illness 4 years ago too. Therefore, my mother developed dementia due to the loneliness.
Cindy, when will you wake up? It's already morning.
Mom, it's only 2 a.m. in the morning. Let's sleep a little more. Lately, I was frequently woken up in the middle of the night, and I was beginning to feel a little tired from caring for my mother. One day the doorbell rang.
Cindy, you have bags under your eyes. Eat this and cheer up.
The person who brought me a gift and said this was Susan, my brother's wife who lives nearby. Even after my brother's death, she would occasionally visit us and keep my mother company. While she didn't help with the caregiving, she allowed me a break to do housework while she was there, which was very appreciated. If you need anything, let me know. My kids have all their own families now, so I'm free. Thank you, Susan. I was truly grateful to Susan. Cindy? Mary? Hello? Susan came to visit as usual. All right, let's get the housework done while I have a chance. Today I had to take my mother to the hospital first thing in the morning, so I haven't finished anything at home yet. Preparing dinner, cleaning, laundry, I've got a lot to do. While Susan is keeping an eye on my mother, I bustle around to try to get as much housework done as I can. While I glance at my mother's room, she's alone. Did Susan go to the restroom? Seeing that my mother is in a good mood, I return to my chores. Having finished folding the laundry, I peeked into my mother's room, and she's still alone. Silently making paper craft? Mother, where's Susan? I don't know. Susan, you've been in the restroom quite a while. I wonder if she's not feeling well. Thinking this, I went to my room to put away the folded laundry. Yikes! Susan was standing in my room where no one should be, and I was surprised. Susan, what are you doing in my room? There's no air conditioner in this house, so I was looking around to see where it would be best to install one. Susan replied nonchalantly. If that's the case, she could have asked me instead of just going into my room. I was a bit peeved that she had entered my room without permission. But Susan, unaware of my mood, continued to talk while looking around. I'm very grateful to you, Cindy, for always taking care of my mother-in-law, so I'm going to gift an air conditioner for your room as well. Oh, thank you! I'm glad she's giving me an air conditioner as a gift, but I wish she hadn't entered my room without asking. But Susan didn't mean any harm, and it's a fact that I'm being helped by her visits. She's my sister-in-law. I should be patient. Thinking this, I decided not to complain about her entering my room this time. 2 weeks later, the installation of the air conditioners was completed. Air conditioners were installed in each of the rooms we use, including mine, totaling 4 units. Both Mother and I expressed our gratitude to Susan, who took care of all the procedures and payments. Susan, thank you. By the way, what about the money? Don't worry about it. I did it myself, she said with a cheerful smile. Really? Thank you. I showed Susan my deep appreciation, but I felt a pang of worry inside. Susan had always been a homemaker. She's supposed to be living on her pension and savings left by my brother, but she bought 4 air conditioners all at once? That's quite lavish, isn't it? On closer thought, it wasn't just about the air conditioners. I remember my nieces and nephews and their kids, who are Susan's grandchildren, complained that Susan always takes them out to eat. Like their parents, the kids also look up to me and affectionately call me Granny Cindy, treating me like their actual grandmother. I was craving for Granny Cindy's home-cooked food. I recalled them saying this when they visited me, complaining that they're tired of the heavily seasoned restaurant foods at Susan's. Eating out with all those people every time must cost a fortune. I remember feeling worried about Susan's financial situation when I heard this. Another time, a nephew who had just graduated from high school and got a job showed up in a brand new car. "Where did you get the car?" I asked with my eyes wide with surprise. "Granny Susan bought it for me," he said. "Susan did?" I exclaimed, taken aback. And to my further astonishment, he revealed that Susan has been giving expensive gifts like cars and bags to her other grandchildren as well. Why does Susan have so much money? I've been asking my nieces and nephews and their kids every chance I get. To my surprise, they all say the same thing. Granny Susan seems to have won at the slot machines. Remembering all this, I was taken aback. Could it be? I quickly went to my room to check my bank book. There it was. Thank goodness. I had been worried that when Susan was in my room uninvited the other day, she might have stolen my bank book. But I was relieved to see that wasn't the case. Just to be sure, I thought I'd also check my mother's bank book. I looked in the drawer where I usually keep it, but I couldn't find my mom's bank book or her seal. "Mom, do you know where your bank book and seal are? I checked them the other day and put them back in their usual place." Perhaps she forgot where she usually puts them. I thought maybe she had moved them to some other place and started looking all over the house, but I couldn't find the bank book or the seal anywhere. Could it be? I decided to call Susan. "Hello, Susan. I can't find my mom's bank book and seal. Do you know anything about it?" "I don't know. People with dementia often get paranoid about theft. Maybe your mother-in-law hid it somewhere." Susan responded, not taking me seriously. "I've searched all over the house and couldn't find it, so I'm thinking about talking to the police." I tried to stir her up. "What? The police? Wait a minute. I'll help you look for it." Suddenly, Susan began to panic. She hung up and arrived at our house in no time. "Here they are." In Susan's hands were the bank book and seal with my mother's name on them. "Why do you have them, Susan?" Susan wouldn't answer my question. I opened the bank book and was stunned. Since I had been providing all of the living expenses, my mother's Social Security benefits should have been almost untouched, with a balance of several $100,000. However, the balance recorded was less than $100,000. Looking closely, I could see that a total of about $200,000 had been withdrawn several times over the past year. "What's the meaning of this?" Susan kept her head down in silence. "You thief!" When I confronted Susan, she abruptly raised her head to argue back. "I'm the one taking care of your mother-in-law like this. It's only fair that I get some compensation. Why should you get all of your father-in-law's savings?" It seems that Susan had been unhappy for a long time, ever since her father passed away and her brother renounced his inheritance. When their father died, her brother told her, "Cindy, I'm sorry. I've dumped all the caregiving for our parents on you, even though I'm the eldest son." He confessed that he had always felt guilty because he believed that the reason she remained unmarried was because she had missed her chance to wed due to her work in taking care of their parents. Caring for our parents is a given, and besides, I'm not even sure I would have been married if I wasn't busy. With a laugh, I responded. My brother then said,
Actually, I should have been the one taking care of Mom, but I think I only have a few years left to live. I hate to impose, Cindy, but could you please continue to look after Mom? Our dad didn't leave any debt, so I will renounce my inheritance. Please use my share for Mom's care and living expenses.
At that time, her brother was in stage 3 of lung cancer and was repeatedly hospitalized. "Thank you. I'll take care of Mom. You should focus on your treatment." You have to stay healthy because you still have to take care of your grandchildren. And so that's how her brother ended up renouncing his inheritance. However, Susan, who seemed to resent this, subtly courted their mother's favor and skillfully investigated the whereabouts of her bank book and seal over the years after her brother's death. Moreover, this money is used for your air conditioner costs and pocket money for your great-grandchildren. Susan, who seemed to have no malicious intent, claimed with confidence that their mother would absolutely be happier if the money was used for herself and her great-grandchildren during her lifetime. As I fell silent, Susan started to say even more incomprehensible things. When your mother-in-law passes away, I will probably receive the inheritance. It's a natural right as the wife of the eldest son, even as I wondered what she meant to say by natural right. Susan asserted that since I don't have children, naturally the future maintenance of the grave would be done by her own children. Therefore, she claimed that the house and land should also be transferred to her as a form of compensation. Keeping quiet would only let her get carried away. What was she talking about? She claims it's for our mother, for the great-grandchildren, but that's just a camouflage. Most of it was being used for Susan's leisure expenses. I felt a boiling rage. It was impossible to have a proper discussion with this woman. Realizing this, I reported to the police that she had been arbitrarily using my mother's precious savings. A few days later, my nephews, nieces, and their children all came to my house.
Aunt Cindy, we heard everything from the police. We're really sorry that Mom was taking out Grandma's savings arbitrarily.
Everyone apologized in unison and promised that they would definitely repay the $200,000 that Susan had spent, no matter how many years it took. Susan insisted that we shouldn't hesitate to buy the car, that we'll pay back the cost, even if it takes some time. Even the child of my adult nephew bowed deeply to me. It seems they're all genuinely reflecting. But the audacity of it all! Normally, winning enough money at slots to buy multiple cars is absurd, don't you think? You're all lacking a little common sense. I pointed out to my nephews and nieces who didn't question the wealth of their mother, Susan. They all nodded in embarrassment and bowed their heads again. What does Susan say about all this? They exchanged glances and replied with an apologetic tone. Mom is being stubborn about it, but Auntie, we promise we'll take responsibility. How astounding Susan could be when her children and grandchildren were here bowing their heads. No matter how much I detest Susan, I cannot fully despise her. However, these kids seem to genuinely reflect and have a long life ahead of them, even though it's due to their lack of common sense. It's too pitiful to be tied down by debts. This incident should have been a lesson in life. With that in mind, I told them, you don't need to pay back the $200,000 that Susan spent. I'll withdraw the theft report as well. But remember this incident, and grow up to be sensible adults, okay? They all nodded earnestly. I continued further. In return for not paying the money back, even after Susan's death, none of her assets will be given to any of you. I made my point clear, and none of them opposed or showed any unpleasant expressions. We documented this in a written agreement and received their signatures. Once the agreement was completed, the child of my nephew muttered,
Cindy, we're really sorry. Can we still come over for dinner?
Of course. Make sure you have plenty of talks with your grandmother. She's always happy to see her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We all smiled. These kids will be all right. They should grow into fine adults, using their mistakes as a stepping stone. That night, I drafted my will. Until now, being childless, I had intended to bequeath my estate to my dear nephews and nieces who love me. But I decided against it, and instead will donate it to a welfare organization. Even though those kids were good, I couldn't get myself involved with them about their money matters. Then, half a year later, Mom, how are you doing? Who are you? I'm your daughter, Cindy. You came. That's good. My mother's dementia has significantly worsened. She doesn't even recognize me anymore.
Her wandering and personal care have become very challenging. So 3 months ago, I had to put her in a nursing home. Now I'm living in an apartment near the facility, and I visit my mother every day. That's my life. When I put my mother in the nursing home, I made a bold move. I sold our house and land and moved to a place where Susan and others wouldn't find us. Since then, I haven't met with Susan. Even after I dropped the theft charge, there was absolutely no contact from Susan. Well, that's to be expected, but I was getting more and more irritated with her every day. "Cindy, smile! Smile!" One day, my mother's words shocked me. If things keep going like this, I'll become a boring person full of hatred, feeling a sense of crisis. I left the house I was familiar with and decided to start life in a new place. I finished moving and called my nephews and nieces to let them know I was now living out of state. You still can't forgive Mom, can you? To be frank, I don't want to meet or get involved with Susan ever again. Even when my mother passes away, sorry, but I won't contact you guys. I understand. I'm truly sorry for causing you so much distress. We all loved your beef stew, Aunt Cindy. We wish you a happiness from afar.
Tears rolled down my cheeks at his words. Just as I thought, these kids were good. I want to see these kids again. It might be inconsiderate, but if Susan passes away before me, I want them to eat my beef stew again someday. I thought about that while watching the sunset. Mom, I'll come again.
Cindy, you had a good smile today.
At my mother's words, my heart lightens. With some time freed up since placing my mother in the care facility, I started taking walks along the local riverbank every morning and evening. The vast sky envelops me. Caring for my father, working as a nurse, caring for my mother, I've dedicated my years to serving others, sparing no time to gaze at the sky or feel the wind. I don't regret it, of course, but I wonder if I had taken a little more time for myself, could I have led a different life? As I watched a bird take flight against the wind, I thought so.
Today you had a good smile.
I remember the words my mother, who doesn't even remember what happened 30 minutes ago, said to me. That's right, because the me of that time is here. The me of now exists. I left my familiar place and came here to lead a new life. From now on, I will live with even more smiles. The bird from earlier is freely enjoying itself up in the sky. I will live here feeling the wind, looking up at the bright sky. I made that pledge to myself.
Huh? I thought I said you don't have a seat here. Today, I'm not here for you. If you send me away, you're the one who will end up embarrassed. For the first time I met my mother-in-law, Sophia, I sensed she didn't like me, but I never imagined she would go to such lengths to make me uncomfortable. My name is Emma Stewart, 34 years old. I live in a condo in Midtown, close to my workplace with my husband and son. My husband Mason never had a biological mother. He grew up with his self-employed father Noah and his brother. When we got married 10 years ago, Mason's brother William told us, "Let me take care of Dad. You two enjoy your newlywed life." So we didn't live with Noah. William took care of him. But 4 years ago, William suddenly moved out. The reason? Actually, I'm thinking of getting remarried. We heard this on New Year's Day when we visited Mason's family home. Really? Dad, you're not being scammed? It's understandable for the sons to be skeptical. Their father, nearing 60, suddenly wanting to remarry could easily be a scam. Mason immediately asked William for the truth, but even William was hearing it for the first time. When we asked Noah how he met this woman, he bashfully said they met in the waiting room of the hospital where he gets treatment. Seeing a middle-aged man act so shy, no one pressed further. Honestly, both sons are adults and we had no intention of meddling in our father's love life. We left it at that. A few days later, I fell sick and found out I was pregnant. When I went to the hospital, Mason and I were thrilled. When we called William and Noah, they were happy for us and invited us to a celebratory dinner. On the day, the weather was good and we headed to our favorite steakhouse. When we arrived, an unfamiliar woman was sitting at our reserved table.
Let me introduce everyone. This is Sophia, the woman I want to remarry.
We knew Noah wanted to remarry, but we were shocked that he brought Sophia without warning. Nice to meet you. Sophia greeted us with a nervous smile, her arm wrapped around Noah's. Today was supposed to be a celebration of my pregnancy, but it had turned into an introduction to Noah's potential new wife.
Sorry to rush, but I'll be living with Sophia. William, can you find an apartment and move out?
Noah, who doesn't require caregiving, suddenly asked William, who had been living with him, to move out. Sophia, the introduced woman, said she has a lease renewal in a few months and suggested it would be a good time for her and Noah to start living together. William, I'm sorry. Please find a new place soon. Leave Noah to me. If Noah really remarries, Sophia would become the stepmother to Mason and William, which honestly made us uneasy. Ignoring our concerns, perhaps buoyed by alcohol, Noah began introducing her. Sophia started talking about how they met, their hobbies, skills, jobs, and even their ages. Information we never asked for. In the midst of this, I found out she's from the same area where I grew up. So I tried to make conversation. I'm actually from the same place as you, Sophia. She then started bragging about her family was wealthy and how all the guys her age in the neighborhood were into her. She even asked, "So where's your family home, Emma? What are your parents' name?" "My maiden name is Featherstone. My mom's name is..." Before I could finish, she looked puzzled and said, "I know that name. It's unique. Hard to forget. I was classmates with your mom." Caught off guard by her unexpected reply, she went on to say something even more shocking. "I have been eternal rivals with your mom in both academics and love, but I was always better. Never thought her daughter would become family." She smirked at me condescendingly but didn't say much more that day, and my celebration came to an end. After that, William rented an apartment near the family home and moved out. Sophia moved in, and they quickly got married. Sophia was a first-time bride while Noah was remarrying. Both were nearing 60, so they started their married life quietly without a ceremony or photos. The next time I saw Noah and Sophia was in the hospital right after I safely gave birth to my son.
Emma, thank you for giving us a healthy grandchild.
Noah said, tears in his eyes. In contrast, Sophia asked, "How does he look like? Doesn't look like Mason. Is this child really Mason's?" Exhausted from childbirth, I was infuriated by Sophia's audacity, but too tired to argue. I pretended to sleep. "How thick-skinned can you be? Sleeping when we have come to visit, you're just like your mother." Sophia sneered. Just then, my mom walked into the room, arms crossed. When Noah and Sophia turned around in surprise, my mom was standing in the doorway of the hospital with her arms crossed. Noah greeted her warmly, but Sophia snorted, "Ugh, you. You haven't changed a bit since high school." "Thanks for saying I haven't aged. By the way, who are you?" My mom retorted, elegantly ignoring Sophia's snide comment. I was pretending to sleep but had to stifle my laughter. "I have heard about you, Sophia, from my daughter Emma, but sorry, I don't remember people who are beneath me." I was terrified of Mom's every word, wondering if she was forgetting that Sophia was Noah's spouse. Sophia, now irritated, snapped, "I've always hated you. Every guy I dated fell for you. You are better at everything, studies, sports, looks. But now your precious daughter is married to my son. She's mine to command. You're still as petty as ever, even nearing 60. What you're doing is just spite." My mom replied unfazed. Fearing things would escalate, I pretended to wake up and said, "I'm exhausted from childbirth and there are other patients here. Let's talk another day," and sent everyone home. After being discharged, I didn't go to my parents' house but returned to our condo in Midtown to raise our child. Soon after, an unwelcome visitor rang our doorbell. "Emma, I know taking care of a baby is tough, so I've come to help." Sophia showed up empty-handed while I was juggling feedings every 3 hours and making lunch for my husband all on little time. "It must be nice to live in Midtown. Why don't we swap houses? A bigger house is definitely better for raising kids." Sophia started eyeing her place as if she already had plans to live here with Noah in her retirement years. All she talked about was money, rent, ownership, mortgage terms. She assumed I was a stay-at-home mom and started visiting after Noah left for work, but she never helped with housework or childcare. I was worn out from entertaining Sophia almost every weekday. That day, she came over after my husband left for work and made herself comfortable in the living room. "So, when are you going to hand over this condo? We are ready to move any time," she said, as if it was a done deal. She even had the audacity to say we should leave our expensive appliances and dishes behind and use whatever was in her place. I have had enough of Sophia's nerve. I figured she thought she would wear me down until I moved out. "Sophia, let me be clear. This condo is close to my workplace and I'll be returning there after my parental leave. I'm not giving it to you. Also, we have arranged childcare, so please don't come here anymore." "You work? What do you do?" When Sophia asked about my job, I simply said I work closely with men. To which she laughed and said, "So you're just a pretty face. Your mom was always top of her class, but it looks like you didn't inherit that. You're past 20 and a mother now. You're washed up." She left after dropping that bomb. I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I knew it wasn't a compliment. I vowed never to let her into my home again. Months later, our son was growing well and had started to stand up. We received a letter and invitation to William's wedding. We knew he had been dating someone and it seemed they had moved in together and decided to get married. We RSVP'd for the three of us. Days later, Sophia called. "You don't realize you're the only one who can come to William's wedding, right?" "Why can't I attend?" "Do you even know your place?" "Yes, I do." "If you understand, then stay home on the day of the wedding," she said and hung up. But William had attended our wedding, and it would be absurd for the sister-in-law to miss her brother-in-law's wedding, plus I had our infant son to consider. I decided to ignore Sophia and attend the wedding. Months later, on the wedding day, Sophia spotted me as soon as I arrived and stormed over. "I told you not to come today." She unleashed her fury on me, her face red with anger, but I calmly told Sophia it would be strange if the sister-in-law didn't attend her brother-in-law's wedding. Sophia retorted, "If people find your family, it'll be a lifelong embarrassment. That's why I'm telling you to leave." "Do you even know who's attending this wedding, Sophia? Some of them are my associates." "All the more reason if our family finds out you are in some shady line of work, we'd be too embarrassed to show our faces." Just then, my husband, who had heard the commotion, came to my rescue.
"Sophia, what's going on? Why are you treating Emma like this?"
Sophia loudly declared, "Emma works in the nightlife industry. Once she puts the kid in daycare, she'll go back to flirting with men for money. I don't want people to know she's part of our family."
My husband tried to calm her down. "Sophia, you're mistaken. Emma doesn't work in the nightlife industry."
"Don't lie. I heard it from her own mouth. You're the ones being deceived." Despite my husband's attempts to clarify, Sophia wouldn't listen. Even when security arrived, she kept shouting that I worked in the nightlife industry. By then, a crowd had gathered to see what the fuss was about. But no matter how much Sophia accused me, no one looked at me with disdain or pointed fingers. In fact, the more Sophia ranted, the more people gathered and they looked at her with pity. I didn't want to cause a scene at William's important wedding, so I loudly explained the situation for everyone to hear. The job where I interact with many men is in designing dams and large rivers. I work for a major general contractor. And Noah, who's self-employed, is a subcontractor for my company. After my explanation, the guests lined up to exchange business cards with me. My hand was filling up with cards. Sophia, watching all this, glared at me with a displeased expression. Then one of the guests said to Sophia, "The bridegroom's sister-in-law is a highly respected woman in her industry, even featured in TV and magazines. Weren't you aware?" "What are you talking about? That's so misleading." Sophia's face turned red as she spoke awkwardly. Frustrated and embarrassed, Sophia turned her anger towards Noah. "Aren't you ashamed that your son is a subcontractor for a company like that? Have some pride. It's common sense for sons to marry women who work for smaller companies than they do. Marrying someone out of his league is just insane."
Noah responded firmly, "I raised my sons, not you. Insulting the woman my son chose to marry is also an insult to him. It seems I was the one lacking judgment. Sophia, I'm divorcing you."
Sophia, not caring about the public spectacle, shouted, "You should be grateful I even married an old man like you. Fine, if we are divorcing, I'll demand alimony and compensation." She stormed out of the wedding venue. The room fell silent.
Noah sensed the awkward atmosphere and said, "Well, today is a great day. My son is getting married and I'm cutting ties with a bad relationship." The crowd laughed and the mood lightened. The wedding proceeded joyfully. Sophia's absence turned out to be a blessing for William's wedding. That night, when I expressed concern for Noah, he assured me he was fine. The next day, Noah signed the divorce papers and mailed them to Sophia's parents. Sophia later showed up demanding money, but Noah had already transferred his savings as gifts, leaving almost nothing. "Can't give what I don't have," he chuckled. Learning that she could hardly get any money, Sophia was making a scene in front of her husband's family, exclaiming, "This con artist, and to think I married him!" Curious, I asked Sophia why she married Noah in the first place. She said she mistook him for a wealthy man because he had a tan and a muscular build, along with a gold necklace. She assumed he got his tan from playing golf. Sophia, who can't forget the good old days, married Noah thinking he was rich. To be honest, both his son and I hoped they would find happiness together, but given their different expectations, it was probably only a matter of time before their marriage fell apart. At least Noah seemed to have loved Sophia. He was down for a while after the divorce and even fell ill. Noah is still very much active, but he's not as young as he used to be. My spouse and I are considering having him move in with us soon. We want Noah to stay healthy at least until our son's coming of age ceremony. No, until he gets married. Going forward, we plan to live happily together as one big family, hand in hand.
My name is Claire, and I'm a college student. I was born when my parents were older, and I have a sister who is 12 years older than me. My sister is incredibly kind and responsible. She has a strong sense of responsibility. When she got married, I couldn't help but feel really lonely. She married pretty young, tying the knot with her college classmate, Walt, right after graduation. Seeing her so happy on her wedding day, I truly wished her all the happiness in the world. But before I even got to high school, my dad passed away suddenly. One morning, we found him collapsed in the hallway. He was gone just like that. It was a shock, especially for my mom, who took it really hard. My parents had been inseparable, so the loss was unimaginable for her. Seeing Mom so down, my sister and her husband offered to move in with us. Though Mom and I initially declined, feeling it would be an imposition, my responsible sister couldn't bear to see Mom struggling. So, in a way, she insisted, and the four of us, Mom, me, my sister, and her husband, started living together. Walt is a friendly guy and always treated me warmly, calling me Little Claire. He also cared for Mom, and I believe he's a good person. However, I was in high school, full of teenage angst. Having a young man in the house who wasn't related by blood made me feel really uneasy. There were days when I just didn't want to go home at all. Still, I focused on my studies and earned a state college recommendation, mostly to give Mom some peace of mind. She was thrilled when she found out. "Claire, you're such a hard worker," she said, hugging me with a smile. But before I started college, Mom passed away. She had been dealing with a chronic illness that suddenly worsened, and she was gone just like that. Now facing college without either of my parents, I told myself I have to be strong. You see, I was born when my parents were older. I knew that I would have to say goodbye to my parents earlier than most people my age. So the sadness of this parting was expected. I always told myself I had to be strong and started living my life with that resolve. All I had to do was get through college and graduate, and everything would be fine. However, after my mom passed away, Walt, my sister's husband, changed his behavior towards me, making life even more challenging. My sister had recently gotten a promotion and was too busy to handle household chores. At a time when I was a student with a relatively flexible schedule, I ended up taking on the household chores. Around the same period, Walt was laid off. While constantly saying, "I've got to find a job," Walt would just lounge around the house without lifting a finger to help with any chores. It became expected that I would make all the meals. If I cooked something he didn't like, he'd blatantly say, "I can't eat this," and throw it away right in front of me. I was both sad and furious, but he was my sister's husband. He never treated me like that in front of her. I didn't want to cause any issues in their marriage, so I kept my mouth shut. However, Walt's behavior continued to worsen. Whenever I came home from college, someone from Walt's family was always at our house. Most of the time, it was Walt's parents. Not only Walt, but also his parents started treating our house as if it were their own. They'd open our fridge and bring in their stuff, even hiding it in the closet. Every time they saw me, both Walt and his parents would suggest that I should move out soon.
"Claire, you're in college now. You should be living on your own. We kept quiet because you're our dear sister-in-law. But it's been a while since Mom passed away, hasn't it? You must be feeling more settled now."
Exactly. It's weird for you to keep living with your sister and her husband.
Becoming independent is part of growing up, Claire. You need to do that soon.
Exhausted from their constant nagging, I'd just respond with a dismissive, "Sure." I had been hearing comments like,
"You should move out when you go to college so I don't look like a weirdo,"
from Walt since high school, so their words hardly fazed me. I wondered if I was the strange one, but I just couldn't bring myself to leave the house, filled with memories of my parents. More importantly, I was afraid that if I left, Walt and his parents would completely take over the house. One day, Walt was in a particularly bad mood and pestered me more than usual while I was folding laundry.
"When are you moving out?"
"This is my home. I don't want to leave."
"Look, Claire, how much money did you get when your mother passed?"
"What?" Confused, I listened as Walt continued.
"You got some money, right? Use that to move out. If you're going to stay here, you'll have to pay rent. Even Kyra is getting annoyed because you're still here."
My sister is? My sister was always exhausted from her demanding job, coming home worn out every day. She would apologize, saying, "I'm sorry," for leaving all the housework to me. She was so run down that I had to tell her, "You should get some rest," even when she tried to help with just the dishes. I didn't want to burden her anymore, so I took on all the household duties to be of some help. To think she found me a bother? I was so shocked, my hands froze.
"You must realize it's weird, right? Living with a married couple? Kyra is just putting up with you. She probably finds you annoying. Maybe you're even the reason we can't have kids,"
Walt said with a smirk. I couldn't believe his words. My sister would never say that. Should never say that. But his words hurt me nonetheless. I couldn't bear to be in the same room with Walt any longer, so I ran out into the pouring rain. I grabbed an umbrella on my way out, but it wasn't enough to keep me dry. Soaked through, I found myself standing at the bus stop. I had been waiting there for my sister to come home. Hours later, she showed up looking tired and worn out. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer as I rushed towards her shouting, "Sis!" "Claire?" she said, visibly surprised to see me. "What are you doing out here? You're soaked." "Do you find me annoying, sis? Am I a burden for you and Walt? Am I the reason you can't have children?" "Of course not. What's gotten into you?" My questions clearly rattled her, but I had to know. "Is it weird that I'm living with you?" She took me to a late-night cafe to calm me down, patting my crying back all the way. Over a warm drink, I told her everything. I kept silent because I didn't want to burden her, but I realized I couldn't handle it alone anymore. Maybe Walt was sizing up my worth, thinking of how much money he could get from me. They probably planned to squeeze that amount of rent out of me. My sister, swamped with work, had no idea any of this was happening at home. "I'm sorry I didn't notice." She apologized to me repeatedly. We both regretted that I hadn't said anything sooner. Once I had calmed down, my sister declared, "I won't forgive Walt for pushing my dear sister this far. We're going to have a proper talk. Father-in-law and mother-in-law will be there, of course." My sister, who lately only wore a tired expression, had eyes bursting with anger. Her fury snapped me awake. I finally realized the people in the wrong weren't me, but Walt and his parents. My sister managed to take some time off work and told Walt and his parents that we needed to talk. Walt seemed confused, unsure why a discussion was needed, but after my sister told him, "You can't forget what you've done to Claire," he seemed to catch on. Feeling it was too risky for her to be alone with Walt, my sister rented a weekly apartment for me. She stayed there herself until the day of the discussion. When the day arrived, Walt, who seemed to have expected the topic to be about home ownership, immediately began speaking.
"So, this is about who owns the house, right? I've been living here for years. I'm the man, and Kyra married into my family, so the house should naturally belong to us. If Claire just leaves, that'll settle it."
"Exactly, Walt. You moved here to take care of your mother-in-law. You should be grateful," added his mother. "But Walt, you've done nothing. You may have had kind words from my mother, but never acted on them. She even had to make your lunch for work." I responded calmly, leaving Walt's mother speechless. My sister then began. "Do you not realize how ridiculous you sound? Walt says he owns the house because he's lived here for many years, but Claire has lived here much longer, ever since she was a child."
"Well, I lived here as an adult, so it should be mine,"
Walt countered. "By that logic, I moved back as an adult too, so doesn't it also become my house?" My sister responded.
"I'm the man and Kyra is the woman, so naturally I should own the house,"
Walt exclaimed. "Home ownership has nothing to do with being male or female," my sister snapped back. Stumped by her words, Walt seemed to mumble something under his breath. Walt's parents looked at each other, clearly troubled. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by my sister's authoritative voice. "Get a divorce." With that, she handed Walt pre-filled divorce papers. Shocked, Walt pushed the papers back.
"Why, we were just discussing who owns the house."
"You misunderstood. I came here today to discuss divorce." His voice feeble, Walt asked,
"Why?"
"Getting laid off wasn't your fault, but you barely even looked for another job. I heard it all from Claire. You didn't help with the housework either. You told me you and Claire shared chores. That's a lie." Walt had been pretending to look for work, all while lying about helping me with chores. My sister had learned the truth when I mentioned doing all the housework myself at a cafe. Walt stammered, struggling to find the right words, but my sister was unforgiving. "This house legally belongs to Claire. Only those she approves of can live here. Entering without the homeowner's consent is trespassing. Claire, what would you like to do?" Straightening my back, I answered clearly. Walt and his parents should never set foot in this house again. This is my home, filled with memories of my mom and dad. I won't allow it to be taken away. I first learned that I was the homeowner of this house from my sister. My mom had left me the house, thinking it would be a problem if I had nowhere to live if something happened to her. Walt and his parents had a lot to say about that. My house was located downtown, so the location was great. Walt's parents loved it and had even started preparations to move in. They used to run a restaurant together, but closed it because they were planning to move.
"Just when we can't move in anymore, we even started arranging for renovations."
Walt's dad revealed that they had almost started remodeling my house without my consent. What's more, it turned out my sister and her husband were supposed to pay for the renovation. Since Walt wasn't earning any money, this would naturally come out of my sister's pocket. Fed up with the outrageous demands from Walt and his parents, my sister feigned calling the police. The three of them left in haste. We sent Walt's belongings, along with the personal items his parents had hidden in our closet, back to their family home and cut all ties. My sister consulted a lawyer and filed for divorce. Even after the divorce was finalized, Walt and his parents were occasionally lurking around our house, so we reported it to the police. After the police intensified patrols, treating it as a stalking case, Walt and his parents stopped coming near our house. Their life became very difficult afterward. With their restaurant closed, Walt's parents were jobless. Walt was also unemployed, struggling to make ends meet every day. Now, my sister and I live happily together in the home we protected.